This is Tim Rower from the Utah Conservatory, and this is one of our Week 2 videos at our Music Theory for Composition course. This video deals with the at-home assignments. The first assignment for this week is going to be to write a C major scale. And with all assignments, what I'd encourage you to do is first put it on staff paper and then also put it in Noteflight so that you can share it with the class. The reason for putting it on note paper first is you remember a lot more if you do write it down on staff paper. And you're going to do the C major scale for both the bass clef and the treble clef. And once you're finished with it, putting it into Noteflight, you're going to share the Noteflight link on Facebook by replying to the Week 2 C major scale assignment post. That'll be on Facebook. If you have any questions about sharing a Noteflight link, you can either refer to the Week 1 video talking about using Noteflight, or you can send me a message on Facebook, and I'll help you the best I can with that. When you're finished with this C major scale assignment, this is kind of what it'll look like. And just as a review, on the staff paper, I'd encourage you also with this to write down all the note names so that you get really comfortable with where those are all at. So this is kind of what it'll look like if we were to write it on staff paper. It's got all those note names right there. The second assignment for this week is going to be to write a melody, and we'll talk about how we do that in a second. The first thing, however, that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to choose a difficulty level. Now, these difficulty levels are set up for people either that are still newer to music, are getting more comfortable with reading notes, or for people who are a little bit more strapped on time, so that if you don't have quite as much time or don't feel as comfortable reading notes on a staff, then you can choose a more basic difficulty level. If you feel more comfortable, have more time, then you can choose something more advanced. So the basic difficulty level is going to be just 9 notes long. The intermediate is going to be 17 notes long, and the advanced is going to be 33 notes long. We also have the possibility for freeform, which is just as many notes long as you choose. If you do that, try and make it at least 9 notes long, if not a little bit longer, as it's going to be more beneficial for you the more that you put on the page. In addition, you're going to follow the instructions, which we'll show you in just a second, that are given on the assignment sheet using the chart that's been provided for you. We're going to go ahead now and pull up the chart that we're going to use for this assignment, which is this guy right here. And we're going to go more in depth into this in just a second, but I want to show you a little bit about this chart. So the first thing to be aware of is that there are some different groups of notes with this. So we've got these 3 groups right here, and these represent some different chords within the key of C major. And we're going to talk about those chords and how we build them and why we build them the way we do, why we set them up in this chart in a later video. For right now, just be aware that we are going to be following some harmonic progression rules as well as some chord rules for this. The other thing I want you to look at with this chart is the arrows. So these arrows show some different paths that we can take with these notes to create a melody that follows some voice leading principles. Again, this is something that we can't delve into all today, but that we'll talk about in a later video. For this assignment, we're just going to be using quarter notes, so that blackened in note head with the stem. That's all we're going to be using. Each measure is going to have 4 notes in it, 4 quarter notes, except for the last one, which we're just going to put 1 quarter note in that last measure. The first thing to do for this is to pick out a note from the group 1 set of notes. From this first note that we choose, then we can either pick another note from the same group, we can stay on the note that we were on, or we can move to a different group. And for example, let's say that we were on the note E. I chose that as my first note, and it's group 1, that's totally fine. I could stay on E, I could choose a C, a G, or the higher C, or I could move on my E, that first note, I could move to a D or an F. And I want to show you this more particular in just a second. We're actually going to do this assignment together. I want to show you now what it would look like to do this assignment together. So we're going to pull up our chart again, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a note from group 1. I'm going to go ahead for this assignment. I'm going to choose the note E. Looking at our instructions again, we can either choose the same note E or any of the other notes that are in our group 1 notes. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stay on the note E. So this is what I've got so far, an E and an E. So once again, we can either stay on the same note, move to another note within group 1, or we can move on to the next group. I'm going to go ahead now, and I'm going to choose to move on to group 2. Since we were on the note E, there's 2 possible ways that we can move. We can either move down to a D, or we can move up to an F. I'm going to go ahead and choose the note F. And once again, from here, we can either choose any of the notes that are in that second group, or we can choose the same note. I'm going to move up to a note. I'm going to go ahead and move to the note A. And to kind of create a little bit of a pattern, I'm going to repeat that same note A. And this is what it looks like so far. From here, I can either stay in the same group or move on to the next group. I'm going to choose to move to the next group because we're getting close to the end of this basic assignment. And if you look in the instructions, it says to always end your last note in group 1. And so I'm going to go ahead and move to group 3 right here. And there's two possible ways that I can move from my note A. I can either move to a G or to a B. The last time that I moved from one group to another, I moved up. And this time I'm going to choose to move down. I'm going to choose that G right there. To keep the pattern I had before repeating notes, I'm going to choose that same note again. And I'm going to choose a different note now to give some variety in this. I'm going to choose the B. And this is what we've got so far. We're now on our last note for our assignment, since we're doing the basic assignment. So there's really only one possibility, and that is to move to group 1. If we follow our chart, the B only has one place that it can move up to a C. And so I'm going to go ahead and choose the C right there. And what that gives us is this little melody right here. I want you to go ahead and hear what this sounds like now. Let's go ahead now, and we're going to hear that melody that we created together. Here it is. Now that's not necessarily terribly complicated or anything, but it is kind of catchy and quickly put together just with this chart. And we're going to talk about the rules that I use to make this chart in a later video. For now, we're going to keep working with our little melody that we created from week to week, and kind of expand it out and make it into something a little bit more interesting. The next thing that I would like to do, though, is to show you what this would look like if we put some harmony parts for it. Here is that same melody, and I've actually created a harmony in the left hand of the piano here. Some different things to kind of fill it out a little bit, to make it sound a little bit different, a little bit more interesting. Again, not necessarily terribly complicated, but it is kind of catchy and kind of pleasing to listen to. For any of you interested that are participating in this assignment, I'd love to put some harmonies to these so you can hear what it would sound like if we added some harmonies to them. Either way, by the end of this course, I hope that you can take these little melodies that we create and that you will be able to harmonize them yourself. The last thing that I wanted to talk to you about with this assignment is something that is the whole goal of this course, is to be creative. And I find that when I am creating something, when I'm using some of the principles that I've learned in classes and different things to make something, I internalize it. I really remember it better, and it sort of becomes a part of who I am. And I'd encourage you to do that, to really make this useful by being as creative as possible. For this first melody, the other thing that I'd encourage you to do is to really create some kind of patterns, as you're putting this together, to see, oh wait, I just did this, and to try and do that same thing, and to use those patterns. Patterns are so useful in music to really help us latch onto melodies, and sometimes the patterns are so subtle that on the surface, that we really don't notice them, but subconsciously we really start to pick up on, oh, this is happening again, and this is there, and that it creates this sort of unified feel that really helps us remember these. Within this, again, there are a couple things that we did to create patterns, this little song we created. So the first one is that we had these repeated notes throughout this. The other thing that we did was we moved up by a step, and then we jumped, so we moved up by a bigger step, and then we moved down by a step, and then moved up again, and then moved up by a step. So we had all these little patterns that kept happening again and again with our song here. I want to show you a very famous song. Many of you have heard it, if not all of you. And this is the score right here. You may not recognize it from the score, but I want to play it, a little bit of it for you. And I think almost instantly you'll recognize what it is. Now, I'm pretty sure almost all of you recognize that song. It's so iconic and it's so memorable. And what's interesting about it, I feel, is that it's really built on one simple idea, one simple motive, which is the ya da da da. Everything else in the song is sort of based around the same little idea. And not only that, this is a multi-movement work, so this is the first movement. And every other movement in this, Beethoven tries to take this idea and scatter it around. And even on this first little page here, we can see this idea again and again and again. And Beethoven creates it and moves it around in such a way so that each time that we see it, it really becomes very fresh and very exciting and very, very memorable. So with this assignment, remember to be creative and to try and come up with something that is pleasing. Watch for patterns, create your own patterns, and I look forward to seeing the results of these.